No preseason, no fans. But hey, we got some football, and welcome back to the Matchbook NFL Betting Podcast. As you can see on screen right now, if you are joining us on video, the unholy trinity of Mr. Drew Dinsick on the top right of your screen, the bottom left, Mr. Adam Chernoff, our returning guest, and a brand new face and voice on the Matchbook Betting Podcast, Mr. Fabian Sommer. Sommer, welcome.
Hi.
How's life?
Thanks for having me on, guys. I can't wait.
So this, good man. Bit of a first day at school kind of question here. For those who don't know you, you're obviously very well known in the Twitter betting sphere. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm an NFL handicapper from good old Germany. Been betting on the NFL not so seriously and seriously for like 9 to 10 years now. I love the sports. I breathe the sports 365 days a year. And I am happy to be here, and I can't wait to talk football to you guys.
I see the other guys laughing, obviously, because you guys have a big lot of relationship on Twitter already. Drew Dinsick, we haven't talked since February. Not much has really changed in the world. It's been pretty mundane. Nothing much has happened.
No.
How have you been coping with lockdown and quarantine?
All of this is surreal. The fact that everything that happened was surreal, and the fact that it's now week 1 of the NFL and it's actually going off is surreal. Like, this is absolutely, it's wild. I didn't think they had their plan together to pull this off, but here we are. Week 1, it's going to be one of the more unusual betting experiences we ever have because of the no preseason, because of the amount of NFL information that I've consumed from camp reports this year compared to an average year has to be like 20%, maybe less. Like, this just it's been a very, very, tightly kept, bit of information in terms of what teams are doing differently, who's in good form, who's made leaps. It is extremely speculative as we head into week 1. So in a normal year, week 1 is tough, because the markets get hammered into shape over the course of months rather than over the course of days, and so there's lots of value that's already been extracted out of these week 1 lines. But this year it's even crazier, I think.
And Adam Chernoff, just onto that, Drew nicely segued into our first topic. We're not going to give this a whole lot of time, but given we didn't do a preseason podcast, we have to talk about week 1 pitfalls in general. But this year, as Drew alluded to, there's just a whole lot more to be dealing with. I mean, look, I think you and I agree that probably some people have placed too much stock in preseason before. But man alive, we could have done with a couple of preseason games to have a look at some of these teams right now.
Yeah, it probably would have helped, especially with some depth and other things in that regard. But I think probably the biggest pitfall, and it was a conversation I was just having before we came on, something that I've sort of struggled with in the past, and I know is common, is not being tied down to your full season outlooks and previews on teams, especially in week 1 and then every week during the season. I had somebody say, you're high on the Lions, but why didn't you bet the Lions in week 1? I was like, well, I didn't like the price. But the point is, like, you can do all these previews and all these content, especially guys like us, and then you have these strong opinions on certain teams, and then you hold on to that thinking that the full season outlook applies to week 1 and then every week. So just avoiding getting stuck in that mindset is pretty important for me, and that's no different this year.
Suma, what about you? I presume you've kind of adjusted accordingly for this year. You can't exactly go at it the exact same as last year. Have you made many adjustments on your week 1 bets compared to last year?
No, to be honest, not really. I think home field advantage can be a little bit tricky, but I think people talk way too much about home field advantage. I think home field advantage is a lot about traveling and so on. Home field advantage is not as big in divisional games because there's less travel, more familiarity. And I think people might overthink home field advantage this year just because there is some limited capacity of fans or the stadiums won't be as loud. Yep. So I would say don't get too stuck into home field advantage. Just handicap the games, make maybe a tiny bit of an adjustment, maybe a little bit less than last year, and then go from there. And I think we are going to review this throughout the year, how home field advantage is performing. Yep. But I would just say don't get too stuck with the adjustments.
Yeah, and markets will adjust accordingly. Joe, I'll just wrap it with you on this one. I know from betting personally on the Premier League football when it came back and backing unders in such a way, and it was pretty profitable for a few weeks until obviously teams adjusted to playing again. I kind of get the sense that the markets may have caught up on some of these totals. I mean, looking at the week one slate, we've only got two games that are in the 50s, the Thursday night football and the Rams and Cowboys, which we'll get to again. But how do you feel? Have the markets adjusted enough for you, or is there still kind of a few avenues to maybe exploit?
Man, I can sit here and make a speculative narrative case that every over is live or every under is live. And okay. I don't think we really know, how this will play out, because in general, there are certain teams who look at the NFL season as an arc, right? They're not coming into week one thinking we need to win week one and we need to win week two and we need to win every week. They are thinking, okay, if we are going to, we need to win our division. We need to work on these aspects of our game that we know we have weaknesses in. Like I'm thinking like the Patriots, like the Saints, like they generally treat weeks 1 through 4 sort of as an extended preseason to try to sharpen their team, try to get more, to try to make improvements. That's everyone this year. Like this week 1 is going to feel very preseason-y to me, I think. And yeah. I really don't. We're gonna be surprised. Like, man, what was going on with the usage of those running backs or with those wide receiver sets? Or like, why did this team, they really gave us some stuff that we wouldn't normally see in a standard NFL game? Because I think a lot of teams are going to, just because players aren't, game fit, it takes reps, it takes snaps beyond just, wearing pads in practice to get up to game speed. And so I think this is going to be a very strange week 1, personally. But I don't think you can tell which teams are going to, be taking this 100% seriously versus using this as part of an overall arc to, their season. And so and similarly, early in preseason, there's a lot of, kind of narrative, hey, the defenses are ahead of the offenses because they're mostly just playing based on speed and skill as opposed to they rely on timing and, and sets, and understanding where they're supposed to be when. And, I could sit here and say that is going to be the biggest thing that we take away from week 1. Defenses are going to be ahead of offenses. Play every under. Similarly, I could come in and say, the fact that there will be no fans, likely to see less aggressiveness from the defensive players. Like, why would defensive players without getting up for the moment, without this feeling like a real game environment that they've played every game of their life in front of fans with screaming fans and high energy. Now that they're going to be in empty arenas, are you going to see the same guys taking chances defensively, throwing their heads into piles to stop running backs or to break up plays? So it really can break either way, in my opinion. And so I've kind of just entirely looked past that and said, okay, if I'm going to play totals this week, I'm going to identify 2 teams where I see path to victory really lends itself to either an over and an under, for reasons X, Y, and Z, independent of sort of the narrative, type of explanations, because it can go both ways, in my opinion.
Look, we've all been at this a while, and there's plenty of narratives in the sport in general, but man alive, there are a lot of narratives coming at us these first few seasons. Just want to get to a couple of early comments here. Don't forget, guys, if you are joining us now live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, get your questions or comments in for the guys. Scott Newman has been in touch. What an all-star cast. Look, Sumi, you're making an impression already. I love that one. Good man. You're already elevating the podcast. Love it. Also, Bengals, Tigers. Why do we have 3 Jets fans on the crew? This is a very valid question. So, Suma, tip your hat a small bit so we can see. There you go. Adam Chernoff. How do we find these people, Adam? There aren't that many of us.
We're the best fan base in the world. So, I mean, why would you want anyone else?
Oh, look, Ireland, Germany, and Canada right now. Jets fans, there you go, before you even get to more. Right, guys, let's get into it. Let's start talking about the games. Let's start looking at a few prices here. We're going to start with Sunday night. The Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Rams. Current markets at Matchbook. You can back the Dallas Cowboys there just under 1.69 on the money line. The Rams at 2.38. Los Angeles Rams getting a 3-point start at 1.92, just under 1.92 there, Matchbook. And the total is 52. Dinsick, start with you first here, sir. I want to
Great.
talk about the total. Yeah. What's this total about? I mean, this opened at 49.5, and it's the only one that seems to be moving up that much substantially, nearly a full field goal. Do you want to start with the total, mate, or what do you want to do? Want to start in the money line?
I have more opinion on the side, but I got to tell you, I agree with the total move. Like, I saw this at 49 Summer and thought, what are they thinking? This is going to be an offensive, showdown. And since then, since it's moved, I think, at this point, I'm neutral on the total. But I do think that for a lot of the same reasons, we can look at the Rams' value in this spot. The Rams, this is obviously both teams have spent the entire training camps in California, so you can entirely throw out, any type of, home field advantage, discussion in this one, and just look at team strength versus strength. And pretty clearly, you have two dynamic offenses. You have a very complete offense when healthy with the Cowboys, top to bottom. Every position they have depth, they have skill, and they are going to be one of the most fun offenses to watch all season. I don't think anyone could question that. Similarly with the Rams, they have one of the more dynamic, coaching schemes and approaches. And you have Jared Goff, when he is given time to operate, he can be an exceptionally effective quarterback. His weapons in the passing game haven't changed appreciably outside of losing Cooks, who wasn't as a great a fit with Goff and the McVay system as I think some of the other guys that they have, backfilling there. So I think you're not going to see these guys especially miss a beat. They replace Todd Gurley's production with some young legs who have absolutely look live. So this is they're going to be live in this one. And I look at specifically the unit that I think is going to be the hardest tested is going to be the Dallas Cowboys run defense. At some point in this game, I believe the Rams can gain the lead. And at that point, can they play keep away from the Cowboys with the way that the Cowboys are stacked up with no Gerald McCoy now, with the linebacking core that I think is extremely questionable when it comes to making tackles and stopping a run, especially when you're going up against a dynamic scheme that uses misdirection and in confusion in a way that can absolutely move the chains methodically on you. I think that's how this game ends up playing out in the second half. Rams can put away a lead effectively, and even in that that scenario, sure, the Cowboys can come back, but just from the strength versus strength and evaluating these teams and these personnel, I have this effectively a pick 'em. So I'll happily take the dog price at 2.4.
Adam Chernoff, Dallas Cowboys, brand new head coach, brand new offensive system, laying tree. What are you thinking?
Well, maybe it's just going to be a similar offensive system to the best we saw from them last year, but just without as many restrictions from Jason Garrett. But I love how McCarthy and Kellen Moore potentially mesh with what they want to run from a personnel standpoint. I think that when we saw Jerry Jones in his plane or whatever that was during the draft, when CeeDee Lamb fell to them, there was a reason that he was jumping around, because he knew as soon as they got him that they have the potential to have the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL within this system. So I think it'll be a bit of a wait and see to see how much freedom or how aggressive Kellen Moore comes out and starts calling plays. But I think against this Rams secondary, there's no reason for him not to be extremely aggressive early and often throughout the game. The safety duo for the Rams, both well below average if we're looking at the combo of Johnson and Rapp, and then they lose Roby Coleman in the slot, which means David Long probably going to start there. He played just 27 snaps at the position last season. And then Troy Hill at the other cornerback spot along with Jalen Ramsey. Hill's coming off his best season as a professional in coverage, but he graded just above average in that regard last season. So a ton of questions within this secondary. Beyond Aaron Donald on the defensive line, like this is one of the worst linebacker groups in the NFL for the LA Rams. So I think that becomes problematic, trying to add any extra help in coverage all around. I think this is a spot where the Cowboys really going to get what they want from this Rams defense. I think there's going to be potential for them to take a lot of shots and opportunities. Where this gets interesting is looking at the Rams as a team last season. I like to always look at teams in three different spots: positive, neutral, negative game state, because the play calling and the aggressiveness changes. When I look at Sean McVay last season, it went from a team that threw the football about 60% of the time. When they're trailing by 7+ points, that jumped all the way up into the mid-80s. That was the highest discrepancy and the highest difference between neutral and positive game state and trailing. Pass aggression went through the roof. Their pace almost went up 5 full seconds from neutral or positive game state to when they were trailing. They played at the fastest rate in the league. And why I think if the Cowboys are able to take a lead, which I think that they will, at least initially early, It comes down to Jared Goff, right? We all know the betting checklist. Is he on the road? Is he likely to be under pressure? And is he laying points? Say it every single time. There was a huge shift in the Rams' offensive play calling and scheme last season where they went to more heavy personnel and 2 tight end sets. And I think it was partly Sean McVay, who we know has a large hand in controlling this offense, saying Goff is not getting better under pressure. We need to do something. We need to change it up and give him a little extra help. Against these edge rushers that the Cowboys have on the field, I would think that that's sort of forced within this game to give Goff a little bit of extra protection, because when he has 2 tight ends on the field, at least last year, he was never sacked when he had 2 tight ends on the field. Any other personnel grouping, sacked 20 plus times, especially from that 3 wide receiver set that the Rams ran so frequently. So if they're forced to go into more heavier looks, that's very beneficial for Goff. It gives him time when he becomes, as Drew said, a very effective passer. And against this Cowboys secondary, keep an eye on the injury report. Woods, Lewis, and Awuzie all listed on the injury report right now. Some uncertainty in that regard. But this is a Cowboys secondary and linebacker group. These linebackers bottom 12, both against running back receptions and tight end receptions a year ago. So if there's extra tight ends on the field, bodes well for what the Rams could potentially do. Key totals in the NFL, 41, 44, 47, and 51. This opened 58, cruised through 51 to get to 52, and is holding there at many spots. I think it's a pretty telling move. I think we see a ton of potential for opportunity of points on Sunday Night Football.
Sommer, what are you thinking? Big move on this over. Last 4 meetings between these sides have gone over as well. We all in on the over, Suba?
I lean towards the over. I think it's a pretty high number at this point, but I cannot make any case for the under here. The only case I could make is that the Cowboys will be without right tackle La'el Collins. He's an elite right tackle, and the downgrade from Collins to Cameron Irving is like the biggest downgrade at right tackle in the entire league. Cameron Irving was terrible at left tackle for the Chiefs last year, but the Rams' best pass rushers are likely to be Leonard Floyd and Samson Ebukam, and I don't think it should matter a lot, this injury. It's definitely something to keep an eye on in weeks 2 and 3, but I think for this matchup, it shouldn't be much of an issue. Adam made a lot of great points, and both teams are going to be at very high rates in 11 personnel. The Rams will put out Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and rookie Van Jefferson, who had a phenomenal camp. He looks to be a great route runner, according to beat writers, and they're going to attack this Cowboys secondary all game long. I think we're going to see tons of play action from Sean McVay, because he saw last year what happens when Jared Goff gets put into uncomfortable situations. The O-line for the Rams, they are not good, but they are healthy, and they don't need to shuffle all these positions on the interior this time. I cannot really make any case for the under, and I would side with Adam here on the over.
All right, overs and Rams seems to be the consensus there, gentlemen. Right, let's move swiftly on to an NFC West battle here on Sunday night in the evening slot. Let's have a look at the betting here at the moment for the Cardinals and 49ers. Right, on the money line, we have the Cardinals at 3.62. The 49ers at 1.34. Cardinals getting a 7-point start, just under 1.93 there, Matchbook, and the total is 47.5. Adam Chernoff, start with you first. I was just looking this up this morning. Cardinals have an amazing record against divisional foes in recent times, and especially getting points. Are they the side to be on here, Adam, or are you looking at a bit of a Super Bowl bounce back from the 49ers?
Not too sure from the side, but I think there's probably another compelling way to think about the total, specifically potential for points. So it's very easy to react to things that come out of camp when they come from, like, in terms of player quotes, specifically when it relates to pace. Like, there were defensive linemen coming out for the Arizona Cardinals who, I'll get to their pace in a second, but like, they were coming out and they said, we've never seen anything like this. But I don't know how much I'm going to put stock in a 325-pound defensive lineman saying I was tired in training camp after a summer where there was no off-season activity. Yeah. So, like, that was a bit something to see, at least early on in the camp. But every single day out of training camp, out of the 30 days of consecutive practice, every beat writer, every reporter, anyone covering the team, and the offensive players started coming out, and they said, we have never been involved with a team that works this fast on offense. And it wasn't just like they were practicing certain situations to get up to the line, snap the football, and get moving quickly. Like there were reports of Kyler Murray and the offense running 12, 15, 18 consecutive plays back to back to back to back out of different personnel formations, like all scripted, designed up-tempo packages that they were just running consistently. And what this did in turn was get the defensive conditioning much higher, because last year, Kingsbury coming into the league, this is what he wanted to do. He wanted to run his 4 and 5 wide receiver sets. He wanted the high pace. The problem was that the offense wasn't clicking earlier, and then the defense was getting gassed out, and teams are taking advantage of it on the back end. So the fact that there was this added emphasis on defensive conditioning, and now Arizona gets DeAndre Hopkins, Kingsbury now has a legitimate 4 wide receiver set that he can run out. With that extra focus on defense, it tells me that the Cardinals are going to push the pace even more, like we saw them try to do at the start of last season, and really try work that into 2020 now that he has the personnel to do it. So I think that there's signs that the Cardinals are going to play and potentially be the NFL's first sub 25 second per snap team since the Eagles in 2015. Where this gets interesting.
Adam, just on that, I'm coming across, but I mean, look, anyone who's watched enough college football can see that being implemented, especially in the Big 12 where Kingsbury coached with Texas Tech. So like this isn't something that, players won't be used to. It should be something that they should be able to cotton on to pretty quickly.
Yeah, and everything says that offensively the guys are loving it because it gives them a lot of opportunity and sort of gives them a different look that defenses find difficult. Where I see this is an interesting prospect from potentially looking at the over. San Francisco on the other side, so they lost wide receivers in the offseason. They have a number of guys on the injury report this season. The Cardinals get Isaiah Simmons to help prevent what they had last year, which was the worst defense against tight ends and running backs. They couldn't defend them. I don't know if I trust Simmons in his debut to match up against George Kittle or these Jerick McKinnon out of the backfield from the 49ers. And considering that these wide receivers are potentially out, I think that it's a pretty clear advantage for Shanahan to scheme and game plan into this matchup. He's got 3 tight ends that he can potentially use between Kittle, Reed, and Dwelly. Reed was the addition in the offseason. Mostert and Coleman still return, but now Jerick McKinnon, the guy that Shanahan pushed everyone out of his way the first day of free agency in 2018 to go out of his way and get, now is finally healthy, raving about what he can do all camp. The Cardinals still have this enormous weakness at defending these 2 positions. I don't think Simmons changed that. Robert Alford in the secondary gone for the season as well. That's another huge blow to this secondary. I think this is a spot where San Francisco can really scheme to their biggest assets and their tight ends and running backs, get really creative with that, and see this pass rate increase for the 49ers. If the Cardinals come out with pace, this could be a game where the snap count gets into the high 130s, and we see a lot of potential for points in this one as well.
Suma, what are your thoughts on this, Matt?
I think the spread is currently spot on. I make it exactly -7. I tend to agree with Adam here. I think the Cardinals showed us last year how to beat this Niners defense. Spread them out, keep Richard Sherman for sure on one side of the field, and then put your best matchup weapons on the other side. I think they will do just that with DeAndre Hopkins. I think DeAndre Hopkins will line up on the left side all game long. He's going to avoid Richard Sherman as much as he possibly can. I think they're going to spread them out, run the ball between the tackles so that they can keep their linebackers a little bit out of space, try to get their run game going, run some read option with Kyler Murray, and then try to attack some mismatches and get the ball into space. And I think the Niners secondary, for as much as they played very well last year, I think they don't have the greatest talent. I think we are talking about Ahkello Witherspoon, Kevon Williams. Richard Sherman is not getting any younger. I think he's 32 right now. And I think the Cardinals have the personnel with Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald entirely in the slot, and DeAndre Hopkins on the other side of Sherman. I think they have the personnel to attack this defense and put up points. So I completely agree with Adam there. And on the flip side, the Cardinals defense, there's not anything to like about them. Buda Baker got this huge extension, but he's not really that elite safety to be paid like a top 3 safety. I don't really see it. Patrick Peterson is solid, but outside of those 2, they don't really have any players who can match up well with a Kyle Shanahan offense. Isaiah Simmons might be put on George Kittle all game long, but we have no clue about how well he's going to fend Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the game. So I would agree with Adam here. There's some decent potential for this game to go over the total.
Drew, I think there's agreement there that 7 is the right line, but I kind of like the Cardinals plus 7. I mean, they've just got a terrific record against 49ers. They've won 8 of the last 10. There's got to be something in that. But where are you sitting on this Cardinals team right now?
There's a lot of whiffs of Cardinals sort of this
true.
year's Cleveland Browns. They get the number 1 overall pick who showed flashes of excellence down the stretch. They make a big move to bring in a wide receiver. They're doing something that's a little untested in terms of offensive approach. There's clear and obvious holes on the offensive line and in the defense. It's very, very similar blueprint to what we saw with the Cleveland Browns last year. So I'm buyer beware on the Cardinals, at least early in the season. I could be very wrong about this. Kyler Murray is a dynamic athlete. He might be a lot better than Baker Mayfield. But I completely agree with both Adam and Suma's positions that in general, the Cardinals are just an over darling. I was really hoping that this, they opened this number at 44.5, and I made my first set of numbers. I came up with 49. I was like, whoa, because I'm at 28-21 on this game. So 49 and 7 points to me was like that would have been just fine, and that may be where we land. But I was hoping we see a little bit of a slower competitive game because it's divisional and, it's week 1, and then next week they draw the Washington football team, another dynamic defense. They go against their poor offensive line. And then week 3, they draw the Detroit Lions, and that game has like 60 points written all over it. So I'm secretly hoping that that this doesn't turn into just like everybody knows about it right away, that the Cardinals are this dead nut over. But I can't disagree that over 47.5 is still a fair play on this one.
I think anyone who's watched Kyler Murray at Oklahoma will know that this guy, if anyone is going to run this offense from the QB position, this is the guy to do it. All right, let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. Hey, guys, I don't know if you heard about this Tom Brady guy. He's after signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He might have slipped the radars with COVID stuff going on, but that seems to be what's going on at the moment. Current betting and Matchbook, the Bucs 2.61 on the money line. The Saints are 1.58. The Buccaneers getting a 3.5 point start. That's been bet down from 4.5 the last couple of weeks. 49 is the total. Suma, we just know the Bucs are going to be the ultimate public team, especially for the first few weeks. Good opportunity to fade them here with the Saints laying 3.5.
Not at this number. I make that game -4. I'm definitely high on the Saints compared to the Bucs. I think they should be more than a field goal favorite at home in this spot. The Saints are returning, I think, 10 starters on offense, or maybe 9. They drafted a center from Michigan. I don't know the first name, but his last name is Ruiz. He looked very good.
Cesar Ruiz.
Cesar Ruiz. He looked very good in the training camp. He's going to start at right guard. So they are returning basically a top 5 to top 3 offensive line. The biggest Saints problem over the recent years, especially in the playoffs, was that wide receiver 2 spot. They didn't have anyone to throw to other than Michael Thomas. Now they went after Emmanuel Sanders. I think he's going to open up lots of stuff for the rest of the offense. You got 2 really good receivers in Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders now. Alvin Kamara was banged up and injured the whole season last year. He was slow. He didn't look like his former self. He's back healthy. He will contribute in the passing game. He is going to run nice between the tackles. Jared Cook is a very underrated tight end. And so the Saints are returning basically a top 5 to top 3 offense. And we don't know if the Bucs are going to be a top 5 offense. So there's still some uncertainty around this team. Basically a new scheme for Tom Brady. We don't know, are they going to throw deep a lot? I don't think so. I think it's going to be a very mixed offense in terms of what Tom Brady can do. I think Arians is going to give him several deep play action shots during the game, but we'll also see his favorable quick passing game. They got a great receiving core, but we don't really know how good they will be. There's some uncertainty, but I'm very certain that the Saints are going to have a top 5 offense next year. And so they really justify this number here. Defensively, the Bucs were quietly, I think they ranked 5th in overall DVOA last year. They were like 1st or 2nd against the run. They were like 10th against the pass. A very underrated defense, but it's flying a little bit under the radar when your quarterback is throwing like 7 pick sixes. But there's a problem with this defense, their secondary. They played well. I think Todd Bowles is an incredible defensive coordinator. Scheme-wise, they play very well. Lots of blitzes, lots of pressure dialed up. But the secondary individually, there are not really a lot of good cornerbacks on the roster. And I think if you put out Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas getting balls from Drew Brees, it could get ugly for the secondary. On the other side, the Saints defense, they are stacked on all 3 levels of their defense. They got a great pass rush with Cameron Jordan and Marcus Davenport. They got a great linebacker in Demario Davis. They got some great pieces on their secondary. So there's a little bit more certainty on both sides of the ball that makes me power rate this team decent, rank higher than the Bucs. Rank-wise, I don't have them far ahead, but in this game, I really like the Saints. At this number, it's not playable for me, but if the market goes with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers late in the season,
it could come down. We know you're probably going to see Bucs money here, Suma. Drew, I just want to come to you in this one. I think Suma hit a lot of good points there. I'll be honest, the Saints, this spot, I like it. It just seems like a good spot for them. It's kind of almost a better the devil you know kind of situation in this game, Drew, surely.
Yeah, that's fair. I also think, and I agree with your original setup, which is, are the Bucs one of the more overrated teams in the NFL? Yes. I don't think that you can expect them to roll out week 1 and be as good as people are, grading this team out to be. And I think overall the Bucs are a flawed team. I have them kind of earmarked as one of a few teams where you have a very clear sense of their weaknesses. Number one, with a lead, can they run the ball effectively to put away a lead? Can they rush the passer effectively to prevent teams from coming back? And I would say no to both of those questions. And then if you flip the script and they are trailing by a touchdown or 2, do they have the weapons in the passing game to get back into the lead? Do they have the run defense to stop the other team from putting away a lead? I would say yes to both of those. So they are kind of a live betting darling in my eyes. With the lead, I'm taking swings against them. And from behind, I think they are very capable of coming back. And either way, those 2 aspects going up against the Saints team that, as Suma pointed out, has top 5 offense, this spells points. I think 49 is low. I think there's not really a game state here where either team, runs out to a comfortable lead and kind of squashes the ball, shortens the game. We see something like a 28-14 type of final. I think much more likely this comes down to late end of game execution. I have higher confidence that the Saints can do it. I don't love the fit with Tom Brady and the weapons that they have offensively in Tampa.
It's a good one to hit on. I mean, like Arians' offense has always been such a vertical offense. You've got to be able to get the ball down the field. And look, you've seen in the last couple of years, the guy is 42. His arm strength isn't what it used to be. Yeah.
It's not a good fit. The minute the news came across the wire, I was like, no, I don't like this. The type of throws he was struggling with down the home stretch last season were the type of throws where you have 2 weapons who can get wide open for the Bucs. So it could be a very frustrating season overall for them. I can entirely see it. But similarly, the Saints take weeks 1 through 4 as an extended preseason, as we mentioned off the top there. I don't know that there's a ton of incentive for them really to show us their best in this spot. I know that in general, the NFC South will kind of depend on how these 2 games play out. So maybe they do give us an A+ performance, but it wasn't even 2-3 years ago that week 1 The Bucs rolled into the Superdome as 8-point dogs and came away with an 8-point victory on the back of Ryan Fitzmagic, rolling 48 points on the Saints. So crazy things happen with the Saints early in the season. So in no way am I interested in laying a price on them. But I don't mind over 49 here. I think fair total in this one should be 51.
Adam, the guy's hitting a whole lot of stuff there. Anything to
add? Well, I'm getting a little bit older, and I guess I'm learning a little more, becoming more receptive, slowing down a bit. And so, like, I was really in complete agreement with Drew and the fit with Brady within the Bucs. But like, maybe I've come around to it a little bit, and I see like some upside. I still think the thing that's concerning to me for him, maybe not so much as a better, but if you look back at quarterbacks in the first year in Arians' offense, whether you go through Luck, Palmer, Roethlisberger, or Jameis, they got hit the most of any season within their career. Each one was north of 40 times. Brady hasn't been hit 40 plus times since his debut in 2002, 2001, whichever year it was. So like, it's just part of the system. I don't think that it's going to be like a stubborn, we're not changing anything. There'll certainly be some give in that perspective, but let's see how he holds up. This game specifically, though, I get flashbacks to like the Minnesota playoff game for the Saints, where they're like, Breeze doesn't have the arm strength to throw it downfield, so we're going to bring in Taysom Hill and try and make something work. And I think that we're going to see a recurring theme of that throughout the season. Last year, Breeze, as well as he's known for this explosive passing attack, 7 out of 10 passes for him over the course of the season were within 10 yards or behind the line of scrimmage. He only threw 10 yards or more downfield on 30% of his throws. So like, this is very much a short, quick, timing-based offense that is not this vertical downfield offense that I think it at times get confused for. What will be interesting to me over the course of the season, now that I think that this is becoming blatantly obvious, is how the teams adjust in terms of bringing extra guys in the blitz. Because last year and throughout the course of his career, Breeze is the best passer in the NFL, throwing against any blitzes that come at him. He's very good at reading the defense pre-snap. He's very good at knowing who's coming, and he's very good at throwing in that hole behind where the guys come from. So teams are going to have to blitz less, force coverage, keep guys close to the line of scrimmage. And I think that this Saints offense is containable. The problem within this matchup, nobody loves to blitz more than Todd Bowles. So how is he going to change that within this specific matchup going head to head? But I think that both of these defenses really, really strong going into 2020. Saints are completely loaded. They have 4 cornerbacks, which is an enormous asset to have, especially against the Bucs team, but any team in the NFL in 2020. Williams graded out as one of the best in coverage last season in terms of defending the slot. Malcolm Jenkins was added in the offseason as well. So plenty of high-level talent within this secondary. Defensive line for the Saints great as well. Bucs, same thing on the other side. Strong defensive line via Vita Vea, Sue, Barrett, Paul. Breeze hates pressure up the middle. Let's see if Bowles is smart enough to generate something up the middle, so to throw a wrench in his comfort within the pocket. But quietly, the Bucs last season, number 1 in pass success rate defense the final 6 weeks of the season. That was to match one of the best rush defenses for the entire course of the season. Huge emphasis on youth. No starter in the secondary older than 24 years old for the Buccaneers. A number of them either snaps last season or coming in as rookies. Let's see how the youngest secondary in the NFL holds up against one of the most experienced passers in Drew Brees. It's going to be a fun matchup to watch, but I think the defenses might ultimately show through more so than the offenses.
Yeah, and both defenses rank in the top 4 last season against the run. I don't really think there's much there, guys, from a betting angle. I think it's a kind of a talking kind of game. It's a kind of a wait and see, but it's the looks of things. So yeah, maybe the over, but then Adam made some good points for the under. So I think
if it gets to 3, I'm in on the Saints. If it gets to 3,
yeah, if it gets to 3, okay.
I vote whoever's trailing at half, bet take the points.
Like it in play angles, straight in there, Drew. Love it. Okay, let's move on. Packers versus Vikings. Let's bring up the prices on screen right now. Another divisional battle. A whole lot of divisional action going on this weekend in week 1 of the new NFL season. Green Bay Packers 2.31 on the money line, 1.7 the Vikings. Packers getting 2.5 on the handicap right now, 2.02 at Matchbook. Good odds against her. 45 is the total. Drew, start with you on this one. Vikings have to regress. Oh, sorry, even the Packers. My apologies. The Packers have to regress. to the
I
mean
think
this
that,
season. Surely.
Yeah, I'm going to make a really bold statement here. I do not think the Green Bay Packers are going to win 13 games this year.
Hey, now.
Captain Obvious, I love it. Get in there.
I said it.
Early,
I said it. Yeah, you can screenshot that one. Maybe they won 14 or 15, but it's not going to be 13. In seriousness, though, I'm less concerned about the Packers, year over year, relative to what happened, what changed with their overall roster and in the most important parts of their roster. This is a high continuity team from last year to this year. On the other hand, the Vikings turnover and who they've lost in both via trade, via cuts, and who they're trying to integrate in terms of rookies and acquisitions. It is a high turnover team. Right. So this is, if there is any truth to the continuity is going to matter early, like this is the game that you're going to find out. Right. I mean, the Green Bay Packers basically rolling out the same squad. And I didn't even mention the Vikings have a new offensive coordinator. And, so right away, you're going to see some different looks for them, presumably. But the net effect of all of the changes for the Vikings, in my opinion, was a small downgrade in the short term. I like a lot of the players that they drafted. I like the acquisition of Yannick Ngakoue for the long term. But certainly early in the season, I think there is going to be a pretty substantial growing, learning curve for these young players, especially given that in the same way that we sometimes talk about a cluster injury, you have cluster youth now in the defensive backfield for these guys. And you're going up against Aaron Rodgers, who's definitely well past his prime. There's no denying that. But the fact that you're going to have potentially some wide open looks to Devontae Adams to gain yards and chunks in this one, complement that with a very effective running game. I think that the Green Bay offense they're going to be able to score points and put pressure on this Vikings team early in the game. And that was kind of their recipe for success last year. Like the reason that the Green Bay Packers were able to win 13 games last season was because they usually walked in with a very clean, efficient first 15 plays, gained a lead, and then turn things over to their defense, who, number one, has difficulty stopping the run, which makes it tough for the Packers to come back in games. But they're excellent from a pass rush standpoint, so that helps them put away leads. And so if you see the Packers look a little bit more, a little crisp early, really even just in the first half, if they just look a little bit better out of the gate here, gain a little bit of a lead. And let the Smith Bros, cut loose in the pass rush in the second half. You put Kirk Cousins under pressure, he's gonna show you bad Kirk Cousins. And I'm not entirely in love with the offensive line for the Vikings. They've moved some pieces around. In general, they've never really been able to coach these guys up into a unit that can give you just especially good pass protection. And so you take Stephon Diggs away now and you add in a brand new wide receiver. It takes the players that they've added, wide receiver, cornerback. When you're young and you come into the league from these positions, it takes a good amount of time before you reach your potential. And to ask them to do it week one against a totally complete Packers team, when you have no preseason and really no opportunity to learn or grow throughout any preseason snaps is a recipe for disaster. I think the Packers gain an early lead here and put this one away pretty comfortably. I took them on the money line. I'm shocked this isn't a pick 'em, realistically, especially after what we saw in the two games that the Packers and the Vikings went head to head last year, and what happened in the offseason with the turnover with the Vikings. This is a good opportunity to get a dog price on the money line and get that one home.
And Chernoff, I love a first half under. This was one that kind of stuck out to me earlier in the week. 22.5 is the current line at Matchbook, 1.81. Both teams, especially the Packers, it just seems to be they're going to build their offenses around the run. What are you thinking on maybe a total play? Talk me in or talk me out?
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't even do notes for this game or anything because last Tuesday, I was on the golf course at 6:30 in the morning. I was the first guy off the tee box. It was hole 3, and I got a text from a guy who's very influential in the betting world from New York, and he said, "Who in the hell is moving this Minnesota Green Bay game right now?" And I was like,
"Well, what was moving?"
was like 7 a.m. and the point spread was on the move on last Tuesday. And I was like, what the heck? And so I was looking, and I was walking up the hole, and I was thinking, I was like, I only know one person who's very low on the Minnesota Vikings this season. Sure enough, I text Suma, and I was like, that was you moving it, wasn't it? He's like, yeah, I just bet it. So I know that anything that I don't have to say about this game is going to be much less valuable than what he has to say.
All right,
and
Suma.
Following through, I think he can tee this one up much better than I can.
Suma, you're scaring the bejesus out of guys in New York moving lines. What's the story?
The Packers are probably my favorite side this week, and I absolutely love this matchup. I'm relatively low on the Vikings compared to the market. I don't like the Packers either, but I'm very, very low on the Vikings this year. I think this is a 500 team at best. And I think this game is going to play out exactly as it did last year in both matchups. The Vikings, Drew already explained it, that they added some new nice talent, but their interior offensive line might just be one of the worst in the league, and they're going to run into a buzzsaw against Green Bay, who have one of the best defensive lines in football. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, Rashan Gary, who had an outstanding camp, according to beat writers. The Vikings have the key matchup when they have the ball, and it's going to be very ugly for them. I think the Green Bay defensive line is going to get the best out of this matchup all day long. I don't see how the Vikings are going to score many points in this matchup. Adam Thielen is basically their only receiver on the field. According to practice reports, Justin Jefferson couldn't even beat out Olabisi Johnson for wide receiver 2. So I don't really see how the Vikings are going to score more than, let's say, 14 or 70 points in this one. I also like the team total under, which is pretty expensive at this point. But I really love the matchup for the Green Bay Packers front seven against this offensive line. And on the other side, Drew already talked about it, this starting dime formation for the Vikings, the 4 cornerbacks, have a combined 824 snaps in the NFL under their belt. This is the youngest secondary in the league. I think they're even a little bit younger than the Buccaneers. I could be wrong on that, but it's probably one of the most youngest units in the league. And they are playing against Aaron Rodgers, who can dink-a-dunk the ball to Devontae Adams all day long. He can pick his spots. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to be very run-heavy this season, or let's say at least a bit more run-heavier than they were last year. And they're going to play against a Vikings defensive line that is very weak at defensive tackle. Yannick Ngakoue is a great pass rusher, but he's terrible against the run. And Daniel Hunter hasn't practiced since August 13th. And we don't know if he's even going to play this week. So I think the Packers there will be able to run the ball at will against this front. And if they pass the ball, Aaron Rodgers can just sit back and look for his matchup on the field against those cornerbacks. And I think I completely agree with Drew. The Packers should win this game very comfortably. And I also don't get why the line was at 3. I think it should be much, much closer to pick 'em.
Yeah, it's kind of trending that way now as well. And look, it's still plenty of odds against plus 2.5. But Drew, even as a betting angle there, I mean, we discussed it on the betting strategy podcast last season. If you're getting 2.5, you might as well just take them on the money line in 2.31 surely.
Yeah, I mean, and just specifically in path to victory, it favors them.
Yeah,
it's very tough for me to see how because okay, again, going back to Adam's point at the beginning of this podcast. Dissect your opinion of a team over the course of the season from week 1. Like, yes, the Packers will regress this year. Yes, they're not going to be as good as last year, but that doesn't mean fade them week 1 against the team that they're better in almost every phase of the game. And I'm only really afraid, I can tell you there's going to be a lot of times I'm going to bet on the Packers this year. If they're going up against a team where they can generate a lead, I love it. If they're going up against a team where they're going to have to play from behind, I'm out. Like that is that simple with these guys. And I have a very, very tough time seeing how the Vikings, generate a lead in this one and put the Packers on their heels.
Yeah, they were kings of the first half last year, the Packers, getting those plays scripted. Right, let's move on to the final game that we're covering today as the main. Another divisional matchup here. The Browns and the Ravens, bringing prices up on screen right now. And money line here, the Browns 4.0. Well, Ravens can't even get 1.3 in them at the moment. 7.5 is the main start here for the Browns, 2.01. 48.5 is the total. Who's strongest here, guys? Hands in the air. Wants to go? Anyone?
I'll take a first crack.
Okay, go for it.
I took the points in the Browns in this one. I'm looking at at Matchbook now. It's plus 7.5 at 201. You're starting to get closer to fair. I think reasonably there's 6.5, 7 points separating these two teams, including small home field advantage for the Ravens. And I think overall, outside of the quarterback position, as I look at the Browns roster, I see upgrades at every key area where they were lacking last year, most notably the tackle positions and the coaching. Actually, I should have started with coaching. Freddie Kitchens was, nothing short of a disaster for the Browns last season. Does Kevin have the goods? We'll find out, but he can't be worse than that. And realistically, a lot of his scheme and a lot of what he did with Kirk Cousins is kind of, there's enough safety blankets in his overall approach to the offensive system that I think we can get the best out of Baker Mayfield. This is a tough test. Obviously, the Ravens. I have a very, very clear tier 1 NFL teams, and it's the Chiefs and the Ravens, and there's a pretty decent gap between the next, best teams. But for sure, I can point to a lot of what the Ravens did in the preseason last year, a lot of what they did to get Lamar Jackson up to speed, I thought was very important for him getting a fast start in the regular season. And I think the lack of a preseason to help get him, continue to help develop some chemistry between him and the wide receiving core at the Ravens is going to hurt them a little bit early in the season. On top of that, the loss of Marshall Yanda is going to cause disruptions in how they execute their absolutely impossibly good running game. I think they'll be fine in the long run. I could be projecting here, but I'm hopeful that the Ravens struggle a little bit early and we get a good buy on, a good bet on price on them sometime in the middle of the season. But because I don't see wire to wire excellence from them this year like we had last year. And specifically this game and this matchup, the fact that, the Browns have upgraded tackles, the fact that they're going to use more play action, the fact that they're going to use more, 2 tight end sets, all of that suggests you're going to get a cleaner performance out of the Browns offense. And I think, that should help keep them competitive in this game, on top of the fact that it's a divisional game, on top of the fact that the Browns always kind of play with the chip on their shoulder when they're going up against the Ravens. Like there's not a lot of separation in week 1, in my opinion, between the top 3 teams in the AFC North. And so if you're going to give me 8.5 points, even 7.5 points, I'm going to take them.
Yeah, should be plenty of 8 there as well on Matchbook. Obviously, it's 2.01 with the 7.5. Adam, what are you thinking on this one? I mean, we're kind of confident that the Ravens will regress, and kind of similar to the last one. It doesn't mean that we don't back them here, but it's hard laying that number in week 1, really, isn't it?
Well, I'm not certain that the Ravens will regress at all in 2020. The schedule gets easier. They added more weapons that both sides of the football. They're the best team in football. I think they win the Super Bowl, and I think that'll be quite comfortable.
Whoa, straight in, week 1. Love it.
As bullish as I can be on the Ravens.
I cheated on the Ravens. Didn't expect that today. Oh, wow.
As high, they're my top-rated team in the league. Easy. I'm not, again, it's the whole preseason versus week 1 thing. I'm at this number, I don't know if I'm running to back them. I think that not only are they the best team in the league, but they probably have the best system to go through the offseason that they just went through and be as effective as they can be in the opening week. This is a very physical team that relies on a lot of very simple blocking up front that's more a product of physicality than it is any finesse or timing or having to be in sync. It's just they line up and they absolutely dominate at the line of scrimmage. So considering that speed they have across the field now and how Lamar Jackson works through the game, I think that that's very beneficial in an offseason where there's no preseason games and everyone's coming in with no reps and 14 padded practices on the back end of 35 consecutive days of conditioning. Like if there's a team that's going to be ready to click as effectively as possible in the opening week, it's certainly the Baltimore Ravens. And I look at the Browns secondary, and there's a lot of concerns there too as well. Delpit was lost in camp. Johnson lacerated his liver. Greedy Williams has a shoulder issue. Stewart has a hamstring problem. Like there's potential that this Browns secondary is going to be much less than 100%. even beyond the names that we know are already going to be out. Where I start to have a little bit of questions, though, and why I think that this number probably fair and should be right around 8, but the Browns are going to be very effective offensively. I think Stefanski brings a huge element to this offense that they desperately needed last year. The way that he is going to bring stability through the running game, the 2 running back sets, he uses the heavier personnel, the uptick we're going to see from that gives a higher level of comfort to Baker Mayfield, putting him in positions where he has been most successful throughout the course of career. He loves heavier personnel. He loves the few extra half seconds to process the field. He loves when there's extra running backs to help him in protection. It was so blatantly obvious last year, and Kitchens completely missed it at every level, that it was baffling to me that this is one of the most mismanaged teams that we've seen in a decade versus what they were in 2019. And I think Stefanski remedies all of that. So quite high on the Browns. If I wasn't so high on the Browns, and this is a runaway spot for Baltimore, but I think that this number, even though it is very large within the division in the opening week, I think it is pretty fair. So it's going to be a no bet for me. But the Ravens, certainly a team that I think presents a ton of opportunity throughout the course of the season.
Okay, it's good to know. Balls out, week 1. Love it. Suma, what are your thoughts on this one? I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, you're on the Browns, but at a better number than what the market is right now.
No, I have no stake in this game.
Okay.
I think the spread is very fair. I get into that same area. I would kind of lean a little bit towards the over in this one. I think the loss of Earl Thomas can't be understated. No matter what coverage metric we take, there are some very good next-gen stats, coverage metrics out there. And Earl Thomas, even though I think he was 30 years old last year, he allowed like 20% completions below expectation down the field. I think the Ravens had the highest rate of cover-run coverage, and he really made that scheme going. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they perform without Earl Thomas in the deep middle of the field. And I think the Browns can be successful offensively in week 1. I don't think the Ravens front 7 can do a whole lot against this offensive line. I think the Browns might be able to run the ball, use lots of play action off of it, and I think they will find ways to score. But on the other side, like Adam has phenomenally explained, it could be really ugly with that secondary and that linebacking corps. The linebacking group is one of the worst in the league. And if they really lose 1 or 2 cornerbacks for week 1, I think Lamar Jackson could also have a field day. So my only lean in this game would be the over.
Okay. Fair points made there. I just want to do a quick recap, guys, of the games we've already covered for those of you who may be skipping ahead. Shame on you. We covered the Cowboys and the Rams first. Drew seems to have a consensus there for the money line on the Rams. The over was very much in play. I think it was 50.5, guys. I'll just double check that at the time we're recording. Sorry, 51.5. Yeah, 51.5. I think it might just well settle there. Cardinals and Niners, guys, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the over was the general consensus agreement, 47.5. Anything else there, guys? We were kind of split, really. The line seems right in the 7 with the Cardinals getting at the start. Bucs versus Saints. So that's fourth game I'm covering here now. So Bucs Saints, that didn't seem like a no bet, a kind of a watching brief. But yeah, there's definitely in game 4 consensus with the Packers, and that might be a money line play unless the line gets to 3.5. Anything else there, guys, that I missed? Browns, Ravens, anything else in the Packers, Vikings? Nothing I missed?
No, that's
cool.
Good.
Let's move on. Any other business? Because obviously we're caught for time, and like every week we can't preview every game. Drew, anything else catching your eye this week on the week 1 slate?
Only other play for me besides what we talked about so far, I threw an under 44 on the Chargers-Bengals. Two very, very questionable offenses going up against defenses that I think are underrated by the market.
You're not buying in Tyrod Taylor, or no?
Tyrod Taylor is going to do a great job of not turning the ball over. You know what that means? Not a lot of short field opportunities for Cincinnati to score points. Not a lot of game-changing, momentum-swinging, interesting football to watch. Which I think both. I think there's going to be kind of an emphasis for both quarterbacks to protect the football in this one, play safe, field position, battle, punts, field goals. This is not going to be a high scoring affair in my handicap, and I take under 4. It's down to 43. I think fair price in this one is 41. So I would still bet 43. And it's this is one that you go ahead and you probably won't even see it on Red Zone.
Hopefully, yeah. Suma, you're going to have a write-up on Wednesday evening on insights.matchbook.com on the Patriots and Dolphins. Don't give that one away, obviously, because we want to get people, obviously, to the site. But what else? Anything else catching your eye this week, Matt?
I think there's going to be an observation that will be very interesting. I'm going to be very curious in how defenses play early in the season. I think in 2011 there was the lockdown where training camps started very late and teams didn't spend lots of time together, and I think that favored the offenses in general. And I also think that this is already a game where offenses dictate the majority of the game, and I think it will be very tough for defenses to really get together, especially when you have units that have several new pieces at linebacker or at the secondary. And it's going to be very interesting to see how much scoring we are going to see in the early weeks of the season.
Okay, Adam Chernoff, similar to Suma, you've already got your insights.matchbook.com piece already up on the Colts and the Jags. Anything else outside of that has caught your attention this week?
Just 2 quick notes on sort of the changing and what we're going to see.
Yep.
Teams are allowed to pump in crowd noise, but at maximum 75 decibels, which is like nothing, and it has to stay constant the entire game. So it's not like a thing where they can push the buttons and take advantage of the offense. COVID testing, it's going to be done. They have this point of care testing that they're doing where they can get a test back within 15 minutes.
You know what I'm impressed by? We've gone over an hour into recording without actually mentioning that. So this is pretty good. I think we're doing pretty good on this, guys. But sorry, Adam, continue.
I just want to bring it up from a betting perspective.
So if absolutely.
The last regular testing for players is going to occur Friday after practice for Sunday games, they get the results back 12 to 24 hours later. So Saturday morning, the player can do a point of care, which is 15 minutes. And if that's negative, they do another regular test, which they'll know Sunday morning. So we're used to seeing injury reports finalized Friday. Now there's going to be news Saturday morning about the tests, and then potentially news Sunday morning about the test too. So we're going to have to extend those injury monitoring sort of mindsets from Friday to Saturday morning to Sunday morning as well.
Oh, it's never going to end this year, guys. It's never going to end. This is going to be. It's going to be a tough one.
It's going to create a lot of free plays, though. That's good.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, no, that was very much a compliment, guys, that we didn't get to that point. But Adam is a very salient point nonetheless. Right, guys, let's go. Week 1, best bets, where we make our money this week. Obviously, week 1, we always tread with a bit of caution, especially with your bankroll. Drew, start with you, Matt. Where are we going?
I got to say Packers money line. It's wrong team favored.
Okay, let's go clockwise around the box. Suma, best bet.
I was thinking about either the expensive 3 at Matchbook. I think it's around -117, -118, but I'm going to go with Drew here, Packers money line.
Okay, consensus in the Packers like that. Okay, Adam Chernoff.
I'll go to the complete opposite side of the spectrum. Colts -8 in a game they might win by 3 touchdowns.
Okay, I like that. My one, for what it's worth, under 45 in the Packers and the Vikings. Ooh. I talked about that first half one. And yes, that line has come down from 46.5, and I talked about that first half line. But what worries me is, again, and we touched on earlier, the Packers in the first half, they do script a lot of plays in there early, but I can see this game slowing down in a big way. So yeah, give me even 45, not a bad number to be on the under there. All right, that's it, guys. We did go over and over today, but look, it's got to be expected. First week back, we're probably not as streamlined as we will be in the coming weeks. But look, that is what it is. But good show, guys. Really glad to have you along. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening today. We will be back next week as ever. But go well on your week 1 bets. It's good to be back. Yeah.